Ian, I know you brought up as you guys were talking here about the the star players that are going to be what determines this Knicks season. I want to start out with a question from me about Mikal Bridges, who has shot 2 for 19 from three in the preseason, has struggled. I know we talked a little bit about Hart, obviously, in terms of his role, but any concern about Mikal's shooting? I know it's been a thing in Knicks Twitter. People are talking about, does he have a hitch in his shot? His shot looks a little different. You have any concern about Mikal's shooting in a brief preseason sample size?
Look, I think it's fair to have a little concern, right? Whenever you see that kind of shooting number, and then you see the form, it looks like it's changed a bit. It looks like the release is higher up, and so obviously he's still getting comfortable with what he wants the shot to be and how he wants it to feel. And so I guess that may take a little bit of the regular season here. But I wouldn't be overly concerned until you get into December 1st, and then he's really struggling from three. I think that's when you get concerned. But I think he's a veteran. He's shown that he can adjust his shot and make shots. He did that early on in his career. So give him the benefit of the doubt, and let's see what the results are after the first 3-4 weeks of the season.
Kaz, you feel
Definitely a little
concern?
a little bit. I can't lie. I mean, we all have eyes, right? Like we've seen the change in his shot there, and of course, in the back of every Knicks fan's mind, they're going to be thinking about, we gave up 6 picks for this, So, but in any case, Mikal Bridges, even as his shot has changed over the years, has still been a consistent scorer in the NBA. He's played high-level basketball everywhere he's been, and even as a member of the Brooklyn Nets, a team that didn't have a ton of expectations for the years he was there, he was still a solid contributor, and that's really all you're asking him to be as a New York Knick. Now, if he's the guy that you need to rely on in crunch time with in the playoffs, and there's no Brunson and no Towns and no OG, then okay, maybe there's a little bit more to worry about. But I think Mikal Bridges is a guy who prides himself on his hard work, like all these Nova guys, and I feel like it'll be something that's in the past, hopefully, by the time we get to Christmas.
For sure. And I think, Kaz, you mentioned the closing lineups too. I personally am incredibly curious once we get down to those crunch time, even if it's the Celtics tomorrow, who's going to be closing for the Knicks. I think we might see different units on a game-to-game basis. Want to jump, I know we talked about the lineup a little bit too, Ian. This is from our guy David Futternick from YouTube. Who should start, Deuce or Hart? Also movie question, The Town or The Departed?
I think I got knocked off here.
Back in?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Kaz, then I'll toss it to you. Deuce or Hart? I know we talked about the lineup a little bit. Who would you start? Because Hart, you talked about it. I know we've touched on it before, but do you have any concerns about the starting lineup, and how much do you care about the starting lineup?
I care a lot about it, and I do think Josh Hart should be the starter. Not so much just about Josh's offensive output, but I do think Deuce McBride, I'd love to see him with the ball in his hands with the second unit. I think this is definitely a year where he takes another leap offensively. He kind of is giving me Emmanuel Quickley vibes from 2 years ago when he was just a guy who was just explosive off the bench. And, a lot of times with young guards, especially in this league, you don't necessarily want to throw them right into the starting lineup, especially with the team that has a ton of expectations. Sometimes being that sixth starter in a contending lineup is just as important as any other position on an NBA team. And I think Deuce McBride fits that role perfectly as a guard who, you look at some of these great teams around the NBA. You look at Boston, you look at Minnesota, you look at Denver, you look at Dallas. They all have very good guards off the bench that can have nights where they could go off for 15, 20, 25 points. And as good as Josh Hart is, I think his benefit to this team is about everything else. It's not about scoring with him. He can get you points, yes, but it's his ability to defend. It's his ability to rebound. It's his ability to push the break and get all 4 of those offensive weapons running. And, when Josh Hart is on the fast break, he's a very underrated playmaker as far as like fast break points are concerned. So I like the ball in his hands with those 4 guys there. And now, will he knock down the occasional open jumper? That's something that he'll have to do with this lineup. And I don't necessarily see us, injuries provided. We don't necessarily see him having a lot of those 15, 20-point games out there. But if he's out there getting 9 rebounds, 4 or 5 points, a steal here and there, just filling up the stat sheet, I think that's the perfect sort of position for Josh Hart. And I don't think Deuce McBride can do that with a lineup of Jalen Brunson, OG, Mikal, and Cat starting in the lineup. So I stay sticking with Hart at the starter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Deuce's shooting we saw at times in the postseason also was massive for the Knicks. Ian, question back to you from YouTube. Nostalgic Nick. It's one of the nostalgic Nick. It's a tongue twister. One of those you see it and it makes sense, but you try to read it and it's more difficult. Why haven't the Knicks signed 2 more centers yet? So just check in for us as they deal with the Precious Achiuwa injury. Is there anything that should be on our radar in terms of them adding to the roster? I know you mentioned they'll leave a spot open, see how Shamet injury goes, but anything we should be aware of there?
So right. So that's pretty much it because of the second apron, right? They're hard capped from a team salary standpoint at the second apron. And I think they have, but the total that they have can fit a veteran minimum deal and it can fit a rookie that they've drafted on a converted deal. So I would still expect at some point for them to convert Ariel Hukporti's deal from a 2-way deal to a standard rookie contract. And then they have room to add someone on a veteran's minimum, whether it's Landry Shamet or someone else. So those are the things to look at there. I don't think they would go ahead and add a big at this point. For me, adding a big would maybe come via trade. And that's the other interesting thing here with the Knicks and leaving those roster spots open, because when you have open roster spots, you could take back, several players in a deal where maybe you don't have the same flexibility if you don't have those spots. Now, I correct me. Someone would need to correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Knicks can take back multiple players even if they're above the first apron, but the roster flexibility is kind of the big theme here, waiting to see how things shake out. We're waiting to see on how Shamet does with his rehab. Again, I think there was optimism early on with that he could avoid surgery, eventually get back on the court. But as far as signing a big in particular, I don't think that's the route they will go early on. The date to remember here, I believe, is November 3rd, because at that point, the Knicks have to be at 14 players. Right now, they have 12 players. They'll go into the season with 12 players. Got to get up to 14 by November 3rd or 4th, and that's where the Knicks will have to make a move, and that's where we'll know more about what their plans are, both backup center and other positions.
Sorry, Ian, I'm just the social media guy. I'm not your capologist. So if you want cap points, we're going to have to bring somebody else in here. We're going to have to outsource that. All right, let's pop back to the next one. Nick Strike Back on YouTube's asking, any chance the rookies get any playing time? Pacome Dadiet in particular. I know Kolek, Kaz, you mentioned him before. He's a guy that I think people, see could be a little ahead of schedule. But just Ian in general, do you think that one of these rookies could potentially enter Tom Thibodeau's rotation earlier than we expect?
I mean, you look at the numbers, right? I think the numbers tell you that somebody has to, whether it's Tyler Kolek or Pacome Dadiet. And I think late in this preseason, I was told that Dadiet had really played better or surpassed some of the Knicks' internal expectations for him. And so I could see him getting some rotation minutes here, especially because of the position he plays with Kolek. Obviously, you have Cam Payne, you have Miles McBride, so it's less of a clear path for him to get on the floor. That's why I think Dadiet, if you're trying to figure out which rookie is going to get in that rotation, I would lean him before Kolek. But make no mistake, Kolek has also impressed everybody in the organization with where he is now and where he could be in the future.
There were some people in the YouTube comments that wanted, Dadiet to start as soon as tomorrow. So you kind of see where the level of excitement is for him.
I love me some Dadiet on draft night. I thought he was going to be one of those guys that are drafted and stashed and packaged in a deal for some star player. And every time I see him on the court, I'm like, this guy should be playing on opening night. I mean, he's a guy who plays like he doesn't need anything ran for him. Watching him reposition himself on the court is stuff that you see in textbooks, see in instructional videos, and his length and athleticism is a lot. There's a lot more there than I think even the biggest, most optimistic Knicks fan thought there would be with Pacome Dadiet. I think with Tyler Kolek, though, I think you know what you were getting with him. I think a lot of Knicks fans are fans of the Big East, fans of the tournament here in Madison Square Garden, and anybody who's watched him over the years in Marquette knows that he's a dog, and he has played some incredibly high-level basketball in the Garden already in his young career. And in the summer league and in the early parts of the preseason, he hasn't done anything to quell those notions. So I think Kolek and Dadiet will get some playing time early this season. Do they play tomorrow night? I don't think so, but If they do and they show out, that might be the best case scenario. We're talking about Shamit, we're talking about Precious, all these guys that are probably not going to be around for the first couple of weeks of the season. If Kolek and Dadiet overtake expectations and play better than expected, that low key might be the best case scenario for the Knicks, where you don't need to go and get a veteran. You don't need to go and find somebody to fill up these roles. You got them right there on the absolute cheapest contracts you can have for a team. So who knows? Maybe they just fell into a happy accident. We'll see this week.
We'll see how it plays out. And it all starts tomorrow. So, guys, final question. Let's get your predictions for the season. Ian, let's start with you. How's this going to play out for the Knicks?
Yeah, I'm going to go third seed in the East, 48 wins or so. I do think between Philadelphia and Boston, I think Boston, obviously, we know why they could be ahead of the Knicks. Philadelphia, I think they will get something right here with Paul George, with Embiid's health, with Maxey, and who they picked up to back those guys up. I think they're going to be a strong regular season team. So, yeah, 3 seed, 48, 49 wins, and you see where the chips fall in the postseason.
I'm gonna hit Ian with the Price is Right and go 50 wins for the Knicks. just go one more above them. But yeah, I think the Philadelphia 76ers, I know the big splashy names have been Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, but they picked up a lot of really solid veterans on that bench as well, and they're deep. So I think between them, the Boston Celtics, a healthy Giannis, and 1 year of Damian Lillard with the Milwaukee Bucks, I can see the New York Knicks being a 2 or 3 seed. But I truly believe this is their year. I truly believe the pieces are going to fall their way, and they're finding themselves in the NBA Finals this year. Repeats are hard. We don't see a ton of them anymore this year because there's so much parity in the league. The league is so deep. Injuries happen all the time. And the Celtics are already dealing with a big injury in the beginning of the season with Kristaps Porzingis, and who knows how much that will change the trajectory of the season, where last year the Boston Celtics just steamrolled from day one. So that being said, I think there's something in the air. I think a World Series will be here in a couple days. I think the Liberty will be coming down, the Canyon of Heroes in a couple of days as well. And I think in June of this year, we will finally, first time since 1973, celebrate a New York Knicks NBA championship. I think in my heart of hearts and in all my basketball watching knowledge, this is truly the year for the New York Knicks.